Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic this week in this, 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic this week in WordPress and SaaS. We've got a great special guest. We've got Jan Koch, the owner and CEO of Virtual Summit Mastery. I've got a replacement for Stephen. I've got Spencer Forum. Stephen's swanned off to Mexico, leaving me on my own tribe.
Stephen.
But damn, Stephen, I got Spencer. I'm sure Spencer will be able to cope and be a great co-host. It's going to be a great conversation about virtual summits and mastery. I'm going to let Jan quickly introduce himself. So, Jan, can you quickly introduce yourself to the tribe?
Of course. First of all, thanks for having me. I run Virtual Summit Mastery. I have a vast background in WordPress development, started in the WordPress space in 2012, 2013. Ran a WordPress freelance business, then hosted the WP Summit in 2015. That got me hooked onto this train of virtual events. That summit pivoted my business from freelancing to having to build an agency because it was overloaded with work. Ran WP agency summits twice, 2019, 2020. And since 2021, I then took over Virtual Summit Mastery, which was founded by my friend Navid, because I'm just full on virtual events these days. I mean, with the pandemic and everything happening, they won't go anywhere. So long story short, WordPress developer turned educator and summit host.
There we go. And I've got my co-host, Spencer Forum. Spencer, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. Spencer Foreman from WP Launchify and otherwise. And I don't know. You guys can Google me. You've seen me on the show 100 times.
Right. That's great. And before we go into this great conversation, I've got a message from one of our major sponsors. Be back in a few moments, folks. We're coming back. Just wanted to say Castos is just fantastic. And also they've got a special offer for the tribe. If you go to WP-Tonic/recommendations, you find that offer, plus a host of other special offers and recommendation of the best WordPress plugins, solutions that you can find. All recommendations have been used by me or members of the panel on the Friday show. So let's go straight into it. And in a way, you kind of, in your introduction, you kind of answered question one, but let's delve into a bit more detail. So you took over Virtual Summit Mastery. Why did you, what do you really see the purpose of the main business, and why did you decide that you wanted to buy the company and become its CEO, Jan?
Brilliant question. First of all, I know the founder since 2012. We started our entrepreneurial journeys in the same mastermind group. So there was this really solid base of trust, which is very, very important when you talk about acquisitions. And I knew that the program he has built is amazing and it delivers results. So when I saw the WP Agency Summit work really, really well, and I saw the people come together and foster connections with events in real life being shut down at the time, I saw people come together online, and now everybody's talking about summit fatigue and Zoom fatigue and blah, blah. But back then that wasn't the situation. And I had been approached by maybe 10 clients within 2 weeks, or 10 potential clients, to host summits for them. Never ever considered it before. And then I thought, well, maybe this is the right move for me to pivot a little bit out of WordPress, out of the WordPress ecosystem, and more into digital marketing in general. And then Navid approached me out of nowhere, telling me that he wanted to change directions in his business, that he was a little bit getting tired about Virtual Summit Mastery and doing the same thing for 6 years, and he wanted to do something else. And we set up a good agreement that I could take over VSM. He's now doing something else. He's enjoying a lifestyle of more travel and being around the world and stuff like that. And I run the business. And my mission right now for VSM is I want to build it into a 7-figure business. I want to enroll at least 300 new people in the course this year. And I want to have an involvement in multiple virtual events myself as a consultant. So the overall goal is helping people bring communities together, which I think is now needed more than ever. It's like this real human connection when we still can't travel as much as we wanted to. And I think if you do a summit the right way and you focus on the attendee experience, not so much about your own monetary goal, then you can achieve that. And that's what I want to help with VSM.
Yeah, that's great. And Jane is helping me with the WP-Tonic Summit, which will be at the end of June. And I'll be telling you, Tribe, more about this in the coming weeks and months. Over to you, Spencer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really, I can see on your website, you've got a lot of social proof and some other faces and people that I know from around the industry. Help our audience understand a little bit. Is this a product, like the form of take a course that you take yourself, or is it a combination of sort of a concierge service with a product? Or give us a run through, like, what does it look like to engage with VSM?
Yeah, so the entry point is a cheat sheet. It's like the general lead magnet that you would have with any online business. It's a PDF outlining the process. We have 5 pillars that the process focuses on. It leads into a book and then into a course for a self-study program. That's a 6-month program where you take the course, you execute the summit yourself, you get into the VSM community to get support from other summit hosts who have done. Some of them do 6-figure events, some of them do 4-figure events. It's all across the board. And you run the summit. 6 months is more than enough for the first time. Even if you have never done something like that before, you don't have an audience, it's still possible. After that, it becomes a monthly retainer because I want to make sure people take action on this course. I don't want to have any lurkers who just buy and then never act on anything. I've done that myself more than once, and I know it doesn't feel great. There is another level to VSM, which is one-to-one mentoring, which is what Jonathan mentioned. That is more on I want to say, per project basis. So that's something that I would discuss on the call to see what type of level of involvement does that person or that business really need. And then for done for you or the concierge service, I've done that last year, but I'm venturing out of it. I want to focus fully on the education part, on the course and on the mentoring and consulting. So the done for you is outsourced to a friend of mine who's been through the program. He's a certified VSM implementer. And then I drive everybody who wants it done for you to him, and they're in the best hands there.
Is there a particular stack of technology that you use, that you teach? Is that part of it as well? I mean, the tactics and so forth, but one of my points of understanding is like figuring out which tools to use in the WordPress space. Can you share a little bit about, is there something, or is that proprietary as part of what people that,
No, that's all good. That is one of the most common questions. And I think it is a little bit backward because the tools really don't matter in the end if you want to run a virtual summit. It is rather simple in the approach that I teach in VSM. You need a website where you embed pre-recorded sessions. You do some stuff live, some stuff pre-recorded. We all know how to embed a YouTube video in a website. You can do that with any page builder. It's rather simple. You can embed a live chat very, very easily from Chatroll or something like that so that people can engage live. You can have, in the simplest way, if you want to have live networking, embed a Zoom link and put people together on Zoom, the very simplest form. What I focus on with VSM is more the strategic parts, like how do you make it a good event? You can have the best tech stack in the world, but if the content isn't engaging and if you position it in a way that nobody cares about it, why are you spending 10 grand on tech if the summit fails, right? So the tech stack in the simplest form is WordPress. Put some page builder on it. In VSM, we have templates for Elementor, for Thrivecart, Thrive themes, for Divi, and for Gutenberg. So some of the most common page builders are covered. Then you need some form of payment gateway, which usually I recommend Thrivecart. You could go with WooCommerce and Cardflows. I've been playing around with that. That works rather well too. You need some form. When you go with WooCommerce, you need an affiliate plugin on top of that. Thrivecart has that integrated. With Thrivecart, you can use the Learn platform that they've just recently launched to then host the membership area when you sell the replays, for example, on the summit. put the membership area there on Thrivecart. You can also do this. I'm playing around with Wishlist's latest course add-on that they've launched. That's fun to play with.
I'll pretend I'll pretend I didn't
you can talk about alternatives too. I mean, there's so many LMSs.
It's into a time machine or something.
Let's get back on subject. Let's go on. Let's go on. I knew this was going to be.
We had a good laugh. Come on.
Yeah. Let's get on to. So I think after the pandemic and what we've suffered over the last couple of years, I think the key word I think about 2022 is community. But you know, how do you sustain community online? How you have community face to face? I think that's the word of 2022, community. Can running a virtual summit help if you're looking to build community, either around a product, a service, whatever your business plans are, Jan?
I think that's the main purpose of a virtual summit, really, to bring people together. And you do that in the summit with 4 different ways to drive people to the website. The speakers are the obvious one. Everybody who speaks should be incentivized to promote the summit, either as an affiliate or just because they want to look good, because they are on a panel with 20 other speakers that are also relevant for their audience. And you give every speaker a free resource with this summit that adds value to the audience of the relevant speakers. So even if you as a summit host don't have your own audience, you're just starting, or maybe you're a freelancer, you have some freelance clients and you want to level up that client base, you want to get more people, and you have 500 people on your list, you can still get like 2,000 people to your summit. My first summit took my own list from 600 to 3,500, 3,600 subscribers, something like that. So it works even if you don't have an audience. As I said, you give the speakers a good resource they can share with their audience for free. Then the second way to bring people to the summit is by having sponsors on board and having those companies promote to their audiences. The third one is having affiliates, which especially works well. And for the WP Agency Summit, I had a lot of success by tapping into Facebook groups around certain plugins, around digital agencies, you name it, and then recruiting those moderators as affiliates. That worked rather well. The fourth one is having media partners. So you try to get yourself on podcasts, you try to get yourself on blogs before the summit, and then they promote the event as well. And then on the fifth one, if you have the budget, throw some paid traffic on it as well. That works. But then once you have people on the summit website, the question is, what do you do with them? Like, how do you make them feel involved in the summit? How is it not just a series of webinars that nobody watches? And the way I found works best is you have dedicated times for live networking, and you make it fun. You have some live polls going on. You have some quizzes going on. You give away surprise stuff from sponsors during those networking hours. And we had, when Vito and I ran the WP Feedback Summit, we had Bob Dunn record a podcast episode in our networking area. And that was really fun. And those things happen if you pay attention to the attendee experience. As I said earlier, like, it's not enough to bring 20 people together and interview them and slap them onto a website. But what can you do that is relevant for your audience that gets them engaged? For example, I'm working with somebody in the neuroscience and yoga space, and he has yogi teachers who give live workshops that attendees can follow along. And then it's actually structured as a science experiment. So they do a test before the workshop. I don't know what touched their left ear with their elbow or something like that. I have no idea. And then they do a and then they do a.
I think I would pass the test straight away, Jan. But there we go.
so they have something they can validate.
I'm sure Spencer would pass, though,
right?
Jan. I'm sure Spencer would pass.
Are you? By the way, are you working with Vito for this year's
No.
Summit? Okay.
No. Vito and I passed ways relatively shortly after the WP Feedback Summit. Wasn't the best fit for working together, but essentially when it comes to about involving your attendees, a good example is have them do something, have them watch a workshop, have them do the same thing over and over again, and see how much easier that thing has become. So when you're talking about anything with physical is obviously easy to do when you do some stretches or something like that and you want to teach something like that. But it can also be applied to coding workshops, like do a 1-hour coding workshop live and solve a specific problem on caching a database request or I don't know what. But this heavily depends on the strategy and the target audience that you want to have.
Right. What are some of the consistent mistakes you've seen from the people you've worked with who try to run a virtual summit? And I don't know, maybe you can give some advice or tips on how you can avoid those mistakes for other people.
Excellent question, but I think we have to go for our break. And then Jan can answer that incisive question. We'll be back in a few moments, folks. We're coming back. And if you want to get the WP-Tonic weekly newsletter, which is a summary of our Friday show and has all the links to the panel recommendations, plus an editorial written by me, which is normally quite outrageous, just go over to the WP-Tonic website and sign up for the WP-Tonic newsletter. And you can do that by going to WP-Tonic/newsletter. Back over to Spencer and that insightful question, Spencer.
I can ask the question again.
Yes.
While you're on the stand, would the witness like the? No, I'm just saying. So I was asking about what are some kinds of mistakes that you've seen people make from running a virtual summit, and do you have any tips or advice on how you can avoid those mistakes if somebody's interested?
Yeah. So one of the most common ones is not being clear about who exactly the target audience is. And then that has all sorts of consequences, as it has with any business. Like if you not know how to sell to or who you are selling to, like how do you even going to survive? And that's the same thing with the virtual summit. If you don't know what pain points you want to fix for whom, what transformations your target audience is looking for, then you don't know what are the right speakers to invite. You don't know what are the right sponsors to approach. You don't know how to structure the content. I've made this mistake myself. That summit had a whopping 300 attendees, which is still 300 human beings. So it's nothing to look down at, but obviously it wasn't monetarily successful. The second one that I would say is being overly pushy with the monetization aspect. And what I mean by that is when you run a virtual summit following the VSM process, you keep the attending for free and then you sell the replays. You monetize via sponsors and you monetize afterwards. When you've built that list, when you've nurtured the relationships, that is when you can throw in your high ticket offer for a service or something like that. Or when you team up with speakers as joint venture launches, that's when you make the real money, not during the summit, not from the attendees. So the common way in Virtual Summit Mastery is somebody signs up for the free ticket. They get presented with a one-time offer for the all access pass, so the fancy name for the replays and some bonuses. Within 10 minutes, that offer is gone. We use Deadline Funnel for that usually. And that is the lowest price you can get that all access pass for. And then you push it through the emails, you try to promote it again. You promote it subtly on the website, but you are not overly pushy with this. And I see some platforms that focus a lot on trying to make the host the most money, sacrificing the attendee experience in return. So when you are on a virtual summit as an attendee, you want to see the sessions. You want to see additional information about the host. You want to see some form of session notes so that if you don't have the time to watch a 30-minute interview, you download a PDF and get the gist straight away. You want to have the transcripts there. You want to have a live chat there. You don't want to see constant pitches of the all access pass, buy the replay, buy the replay, buy the replay. That's when you tune out, and that's when people say they are fatigued of summits. So be mindful about that and be respectful of the experience of the summit attendees is what I would say in that regard, and sacrifice your monetary rewards in the short term if needed to make sure that you build a strong fan base with the summit. You win the trust and the know and the like factors of the attendees, and then you nurture them via email and you sell them later. That's how you build sustainable businesses. And then the third one I would say is only focusing on A-list speakers. And that might sound a bit counterintuitive. So
You're saying
you-
that one should only focus on A-list, or
No,
enough?
don't focus. But I see some people who only go after the big names. They only try to get the biggest names in the industry to promote the summit. The point of that is, when you only have the biggest names, they don't promote. Why would they? They have an audience of multiple 100,000 followers. They are not interested in promoting your summit. They don't need that one video of theirs be overly promoted. They push it once, they maybe share it on social media. They probably won't send an email about it. They won't speak about it on YouTube or something like that. They won't mention it in other interviews and say, hey, I was just interviewed on Jan's summit and it was the best thing ever. Like, I had, for example, this week, I had a recording with a best-selling author who opened Adobe's keynote, the global Adobe keynote he opened this year for 4,000 people. And he's not going to promote the summit more than once or twice. I can't expect him to. I'm glad that he didn't charge me to be on the summit that I'm organizing. So to balance that, you need to have super enthusiastic speakers with smaller audiences who obviously need to know what they're talking about, and they need to have a good message, and they need to be good at presenting and all that stuff. But those are the people who tell everybody who wants to hear and who don't want to hear from the summit about that they are sharing the stage with these big names. And that is, when enough people of that do that at the same time, that is how you make that wave in the industry. That is why suddenly everybody is talking about your summit.
I mean, it seems like I've seen your model, obviously, because I'm familiar with the Adarim Summit and the other ones like it. And the thing that struck me as interesting, which you've outlined here, it seems like the model involves having sponsors as the first line of monetization. Yep. And that the people who are attendees are basically being given a chance to see the content they want live if they show up, like the old-fashioned TVs that Jonathan and I grew up with. And that then they have a chance. Well, remember, like, which when I grew up in the 70s, there wasn't on-demand Netflix and Hulu.
Well, when I grew up, it was just radio speak.
Yeah, right. With a hand crank, you know. But the point is that you're sort of saying to the attendees, you get to see it for free if you can be there, but then you have a low-key approach to upselling it. But really, the key to your approach sounds like you really need to gather these sponsors, and that I think from your model, because I've seen it in action, you're trying to say to the sponsors, you can also be a presenter if you wish to do that, right? And
it depends on the type of package. Yeah. So usually you have multiple tiers of sponsorship packages, and the cheapest one usually doesn't include a sponsored speaker slot. And then the more expensive the packages become, the more value you have to give to the sponsor in return. And they usually ask for being a speaker, doing a live webinar. You can do a roundtable, bring all the sponsors together, have a 1-hour conversation, and have them tear themselves apart, essentially. You can do all sorts of stuff.
We definitely have to have that. But Jan's been quite impressed with my selling ability, haven't you, Jan?
Yeah.
Let me ask you, sorry, do you find that it's a good strategy with the low-end speakers, the ones that are really able to hustle? Do you have any strategy advice about, do you ask them to be sponsors? Does that precipitate more or less involvement? Or you're just saying, like, I want you to come and bring your audience, that's your pay?
I make speakers affiliates for the All Access Pass. So the more they promote, the more money they make. And that's, again, less interesting for the speakers who are already successful, who have their big audience. They have bigger income streams than promoting a $100 All Access Pass. But if somebody is just starting out and they drive like $1,000 in affiliate commission, they're really happy about it.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, that makes a lot of sense when you say it that way, because you get more action from people with their own audience that are trying to climb the hill. So you don't charge them money, and they bring their information. And then the people that are, let's say, interested in getting attention will pay for sponsorship if the audience of the other speakers is relevant to them or is relevant to the product.
Yeah, and there is this, sponsors and speakers are completely different. So speakers usually don't get paid. Yeah, I mean, some summit hosts say, okay, I want to compensate you for your time. So here's, like, even if it's a symbolic $100 or something like that. Some summit hosts simply don't have the budget for that, so they don't pay the speakers and they just make them affiliates. The point about that is, be upfront about it. and don't assume the speaker doesn't want to get paid, but just be transparent about it. And then not every sponsor is becoming a speaker automatically. So it has to be a good fit. And I've seen sponsors turn down the speaker slot because they didn't want to,
They don't
for
like
whatever reason. Yeah, maybe they just don't have the manpower to properly produce an interview or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's always a case-by-case decision, really. The key thing I learned with sponsors is you cannot communicate enough, because usually misunderstandings happen somewhere around the process. You cannot assume anything. You always have to spell every little detail out, and you have to be flexible in terms of what perks and what packages they get, because every company has their own take on marketing, has their own strategies, and you wanna accommodate that.
Yeah, I think on myself, I think also having a track record, I think it's helped, as Spencer says, my smooching has benefited me, because I am the king smoocher, aren't I, Jan?
Definitely, most definitely. And I've been impressed with the level of
I think you mean
companies you got
schmoozer.
involved.
Smoocher.
Schmoozer.
Schmoozer. I think that's how you pronounce it. Is it schmoozer?
Because I think a smoocher does something else, but not necessarily.
We won't go there. This is family friendly. Please, Spencer. Right, where are we? I think it's time to wrap up the podcast about the show, but I'm sure Jan's up for staying with us for another 10, 15 minutes. You can watch the whole interview plus the bonus content on the WP-Tonic YouTube channel. Plus, we've got a load of other content on there. Plus, if you're really brave, you can join the WP-Tonic tribe on the Facebook the WordPress Mastermind group. It's got the longest title of any Facebook group in the world. I can't even pronounce it myself, which Spencer constantly criticizes me for and takes delight. But there we go. I'm used to that. So let's wrap up the podcast part of the show and let Jan. So, Jan, what's the best way to find out more about you and your fabulous Virtual Summit Mastery course and other services, Joe?
Has to be virtualsummitmastery.com. And if you want to search for Jan Koch on Facebook, you'll find some dude that looks like me and that has a weird background with the VSM logo on it in the cover profile.
Oh, I look forward to that. Spencer, how can people find more about you and your wisdom, Spencer?
At WPLaunchify.com. That's the easiest way.
And I just wanted to say, audience, I'm really delighted that the audience figures have expanded enormously recently, and we're becoming one of the top podcasts in the WordPress and SaaS space. I hope to grow it even more this year with your help. I just wanted to say thank you so much, audience, and being part of the tribe. Like I say, join us on the bonus content. We'll be back next week with another fabulous guest. We'll be back soon. See you soon, folks. Bye. So Spencer's looking at me. He's giving me that lawyer look that always looks me going. He's giving me that lawyer look.
It's like those language differences. It's just like one different pronunciation, one word means two different things.
I'm so happy I'm English. With my dyslexia, my English, what a combination. Half the stuff I can't even pronounce in my own language. There we go, but I get away with it. Americans find it very charming. Well, some of them do. So, Jan, what have been some of the, you've been doing this for 5 years now, 4 or 5 years plus. What have been some of the biggest surprises that you have learned trying to build this business? What are some of the things that have surprised you that you didn't anticipate in this journey to build up this company, Virtual Summit Mastery?
That's a brilliant question. I would say tech matters a lot less than I thought it does. And it's more about strategy. It's more about connecting on a human level. And the tech behind it is almost it's replaceable. I mean, as I said in the podcast, we have the WordPress stack that's figured out for VSM. We also have the templates for ClickFunnels. We have the templates for Kartra. And I know that's blasphemy in the WordPress ecosystem.
Yeah, and my blood supply is getting hotter now. Yeah. But I forgive you. I forgive you. I might not forgive you after this summit if you don't perform, Jan. But
forgive me that I have sinned. Yeah.
Right.
but it really is coming to the point in that the tech is not the differentiating factor for making a good virtual summit. And there are tons of platforms coming out these days, and they all have their own benefits. They all have their own disadvantages. What is most important is that you have the strategy down in the first place. That's this thing I come across over and over and over again. People complicate the tech, and the tech is the least important factor for a virtual summit.
Well, the tech in some ways is the easy bit, isn't it? In some ways.
It is. And it is the one that you can outsource the easiest to. If you don't have the capabilities for that, hire somebody who has.
So I'm trying to recap what, so it's the actual building of relationships, and that's been the most surprising and the most difficult.
The most difficult is, from my own perspective, the done for you part of things, and all the education you have to do with company owners, not necessarily coming from our industry, having their own sets of beliefs. For example, I've had one customer who didn't have an email list before and who said, we cannot post on this platform more than once a month or something like that. And you have these limiting beliefs that you have to overcome at some point. As the summit hosts themselves, you have to always keep momentum up. That is very, very tricky, because as a summit host, you're speaking with tons of people, probably 200 people a week if you're serious, when you're reaching out to speakers and sponsors and stuff, and you hear no more than you hear yes.
You know what the biggest lesson I've learned over the past few years, Jan?
Go ahead.
Generosity of your time, generosity of giving opportunities to people in the WordPress community, generosity about, allowing people to be hosts on your show or whatever, trying to be as generous, because a lot of people, obviously you're running a business and it's got to make money, but people aren't going to really help you really if they sense that it's just about you all the time. Yeah. Would you agree with that, Jan?
100%. And I had an interview about that for my upcoming summit with Adriana Monique Alvarez, a book publishing specialist. She said the exact same thing when we talked about storytelling a lot, and the human connection is what most matters. And you win that by being generous with, as you said, giving opportunities or just sharing what is going on for you in your life, making yourself accessible as a human so that other people can relate to that. And that is how you also get the most success when trying to get speakers for a virtual summit. So I've seen people who have hundreds of thousands of followers join me for an interview because the idea for the summit resonated with them. And because I told them, hey, I am the host and I will make some money of this, but it's not about me as the host. I want to deliver value to the audience. I want to help the community because of XYZ reasons. Would you like to join the event as a speaker? They are more inclined to say yes to that if you make it easy for them, like don't have them do a presentation, interview them so that they don't have to prepare slides and stuff like that.
Yeah, I suppose it depends why you want the money. The reason I want money is I don't want a boss. I just want to do my own thing.
Yeah.
So, and the only thing I really spend money is on a ridiculous sports car I've got. But fundamentally, it's just about me doing my own thing and not having somebody tell. I'm quite happy to work with other people in a cooperative, but it doesn't go down well with me when people start telling me what to do. Over to you, Spencer.
Are you willing to share some sense of what it costs to engage with VSM? I mean, I realize there might be a certain specific to each user because there's an interview.
Yeah.
But what does that Can you give us sort of like a hint so that somebody has an idea of what range it might be in?
So the
If you want.
involvement, yeah. So I'm not going to give you the exact price, and here's why. It is hard to communicate the value of a summit if I don't know the specific situation the business owner is in who wants to run it. So when I have these strategy calls with people who want to enroll in VSM, I turn them down if it's not the right fit. It is a low four-figure investment to go into the course, and then it is a high four-figure investment to evolve on the one-to-one mentoring and take steps further from there. It is a five-figure investment for my partner to run a done-for-you summit. And if you want to run a summit yourself, you're probably looking overall a ballpark range of $5,000, $6,000 maybe. If you want to do it yourself and you want to invest in VSM for guidance, that's probably the ballpark figure.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can recoup that money before the summit starts from the sponsors usually, and then decide on, and Jonathan's very happy about that, decide on what you want to do with that.
I'm very looking
You're
for
very
the-
you're
I'm
very
looking for-
aggressive with the money. That's amazing to see what you're doing with the money.
Thank you for that. But what I meant was that I'm struggling for the right word, Jando, but I'm very not happy, but I'm really struggling for this word, that some of the major sponsors that have given me their money have the confidence that
Humbled.
I'm humbled. That's the word. I am humbled that, you know, they're giving me a substantial check and they believe that me and the team that I'm, with your help, assembling, that I'm going to pull off a major event. So I take that, you know, in it, that I have a responsibility to give them what they've shown in front of me. So I'm not a psychopath. So I want everybody to be a winner, basically. I know it's cliche, but honestly, I probably I'm brought in a team member, which I think the other factor, would you agree with this, is that it's rapidly coming in front of my consciousness that there's going to be even more work than I thought it was going to be.
It's not an easy project to run a virtual summit. Even with Virtual Summit Mastery, it's not. And there are ways to save yourself some time. Like there are templates in Virtual Summit Mastery for databases on how to manage your speakers properly. And there are templates.
Yeah, but at least I had the sense to hire you, didn't I?
Yeah, I mean, that is also a reason why you get speakers for free usually, is because the bigger the speaker is, the more likely they are to know what you are going through if you run a virtual summit. They have a sense for the workload that you are taking on, and they respect that. And even if you don't have a track record for your business, if you approach somebody saying, hey, I'm running this virtual summit, do you want to be a speaker? They have a sense for how much work you're putting into it. And I don't want to scare people away. You can do this on your own, and you can do this even as a part-time gig. And check out vsmpodcast.com. There are resources about it, episodes about that, what you can do to make it on your own. But it is not something that should be underestimated in terms of workload. And there's a reason why VSM is a 6-month program, because you don't want to rush the first one.
No. Oh, sorry, Spencer. Have you got a question?
No, I appreciate your answer. I realize that, you know, it's a very concierge product you're offering. It really has to be fit to the individual. But I think a lot of people are curious, and I recognize some of the people on your social proof list and what they've done in the past. Is this a product that you feel, or a product service that you feel is a fit for ordinary solopreneurs? Or does one need to already have a successful product and business to really make that kind of an investment?
It works for both. Just over the past few weeks, I've enrolled multiple people who are employed and they want to start their own business by using a virtual summit, and they run it on the side. It also works really well if you have a profitable business. Obviously, the more funds you can throw at any project, the bigger the project becomes usually. And I would say for a solopreneur, you will invest more of your own time than you will invest money. And as a business owner, you will invest usually more money than more of your own time. So that's the balancing act there.
Right.
Yeah, I saw it. My main goal, if I make some money from this, that would be great, but I see that as gravy. The main reason why I'm doing it is to become a thought leader in the membership e-learning area. Because if this is a success, to probably do it every year. Also to build up my email list substantially, and also just build external relationships outside the WordPress space as much as possible. So I treat it as what could I do with my sweat equity and some of my team's equity to get the most exposure for WP-Tonic. And I came to the conclusion, even though it was a difficult hurdle, probably trying to get the biggest virtual summit I can would probably be the best return on my sweat and money than all the other options I was looking at. So that's why I'm doing it, Jan. But it's not an easy thing. But I suppose really it depends if you're going to take other people's money. Because like I say, if you're not a psychopath or a sociopath, when you start saying to sponsors, give me money and this is what I plan, you're putting your credibility, your word on the line, really. Because if it all doesn't happen, they will never forgive you, will they?
And they will come after you if you don't have an appropriate contract in place. It's business to business. So that is something to be mindful of. And you've mentioned up one very important point, Jonathan, which is you want to run the summit more than once. So that is something that if you are serious about, or if you consider running a summit, keep in mind you build the platform once, you build the website once, you build the email automations once, you build the entire funnel once. You can clone it over and over again. Just run it again in 6 months, run it again in a year. Make it a yearly event. I've seen people in VSM, the first summit had 500 people. Now, 3 years later, they get 20,000 people to the virtual summit. I've seen people over the course of 5 years go from literally 1,000 attendees to 24,000 attendees and banking 400K from a summit. So it is possible. And the key is with the summit, you learn every single time you run it, you improve it, you add new automations to it to save yourself some time.
Yeah, I think you got a good point, because it was an eye-opener. We had a client that we built a bespoke solution for their virtual summit in WordPress, and they had a documentary that was on Netflix and other streaming services, and they had over 200,000 people sign up for their virtual summit. And then they had a paid package, and they made, obviously it was confidential, and I signed an agreement not to discuss the figures, but they made a substantial amount of money out of that event. But they knew how to market, in all fairness. So I think it's because just to finish off, I think there's a few voices that saying virtual summits, it was the in thing, but now it's a bit burnt out. But isn't that the way of all things on the internet? The technology becomes easier. As the technology gets easier, you just get more people piling in. So it becomes a marketing question, doesn't it?
Here's the best answer for that. Yesterday, I posted about this Facebook thing with Meta threatening and then seemingly not threatening to pull out of Europe because of the data privacy stuff. And I said that the best alternative for that, no matter whether it happens or not, is to have your own email list. You won't believe how many people told me email is dead. And email is still like 4x more ROI positive than anything else I've ever seen. And some statistics say the ROI on email is 41x instead of 4x. So as you said, the more people see summits, and maybe they attend the summit and that's purely made, and then they say summits are dead. But it's like webinars. If the webinar is good, I'll stick with it until the end. If the webinar host sucks and they don't capture me after 5 minutes, I'm gone. So it's all about the strategy and how you position the summit in the first place.
That's it. I think we wrap it up now, Jan. Thanks for your words of wisdom and insights. And like I say, I will be hunting you down if it's all a failure. I'll be making sure that it's all blamed on you and I escape responsibility. No, I won't actually. It's totally down to me, actually. Oh dear. We'll see you soon, tribe. Bye.